Welcome to the Extra Mile podcast for bar exam takers. My name is Jackson Mumey, and each week we'll be bringing you updated information about the bar exam and what you need to do in order to make the next bar exam your last bar exam. Ready to get started? Let's jump to it. Welcome. Today is Wednesday, February 21st. We are now 6 days until the February 2024 exam. You can feel the excitement in the air. People getting ready. We've got an all-star crew with us here today. Tracey's here, June is here, Briana is here. Briana, we haven't seen you in a couple of weeks. Nice to have you with us. And this is a weird time, isn't it? We're like right in front of the exam, and yet there's still a lot of work that can be done over the next few days. Briana, if you think back to the week before you took your bar exam.
Was fortunate. Yes, the anxiousness is still there, the excitement about the exam, but I had found a calm within me leading up to this last week before the exam. I had done the work. I was working with acceptance of where I was finding that confidence and really honestly digging in to believe in myself that I could truly pass this exam. So I had gone over that bridge, but go ahead.
Briana, I remember a meeting with you that week and you had a ball cap on, you'd been to the gym, it was early in the morning and you had a kind of a boss look. And it was so exciting to see that. Even these many years later, you were just ready to go take the exam and kill it, which of course is what you did. But it's a great feeling to have, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. I had never got to experience that going into any other exam. It was such a relief to find that inner peace and know that I had that preparation under my belt. If you can dig in no matter where you're at in that process and just believe that you've done enough, it is going to completely change your next couple of days and then leading up into the exam.
Yeah. I've got some students that I'm working with this time. I know Tracey is doing, and you are, and Amanda. I've got some students that definitely have that boss attitude. I hope they're relating to that. I hope they're saying, oh my God, that's me. Today, what we're going to be doing is taking what we call our biggest challenge day. I sent out an email earlier in the week. I asked you what your biggest challenge was with a week to go. I got a lot of great responses. We can't deal with all of them, but we're going to take some representative ones and let our panel talk about all of those. So I want to make sure we get enough time to do that. I want to make a couple of reminders and announcements. One of them is our live bar prep bootcamp coming up in Denver, April 26th and 27th. Enrollments are continuing, and this is probably one of our best early enrollments that we've had. This is going to be quite an experience, and we want to make sure that everyone who is taking the exam in July of 2024 or February of 2025 get the opportunity to join us. If you are a February 2024 student and you want to protect the possibility that you might need boot camp, you can register with this $100 application fee, and it's fully refundable. If you don't need it, which we hope would be the case, then you get your money back, but you've reserved your seat. Now, in order to apply, there is a link, and June can put that link up in the chat box. We really would love to see you here. We're going to have almost all of our coaches. I'm sorry to say Bobga is not coming with us this time, but we're just getting Briana here. We're going to have Amanda here. June's going to be here. Tracey's going to be here. I'm going to be here. We've got a great schedule set up for everybody. And it is 2 full days of training that makes a huge difference. We have such a roster of prior boot campers who've passed the bar exam. It really is a game changer. And so we hope you'll join us April 26th and 27th, but spots are starting to fill up quickly. So don't be left out. Go ahead and fill out that application. If you're a photo reader, we're going to deduct $400 from your boot camp tuition. If you're not a photo reader, we're going to give you the photo reading course, which is worth $400 as part of your boot camp tuition. So it's a win-win either way.
It is very exciting for us as coaches to be able to meet you personally and see where you are in your study journey, and then to give you one-on-one personal help. When Jackson says spaces are limited, we're not talking 40 or 50 people. We're talking 15 people max, because we want to have plenty of one-on-one time with you. This is not a set and get class where you just sit there and Jackson lectures to you for 2 days, but it is an experience where we work with you in small groups so you can see what other students are doing and maybe the challenges that they're having, or maybe the successes that they're having, and learn from that. We'll stand over your shoulder and look at your mind maps and give you suggestions about that. We'll help you photo read. Jackson will give you an exercise and see how you're doing with photo reading. You'll have essay writing, and the experience of Briana, Amanda, and me looking at your essays and having you rewrite it. So it's an invaluable experience. It is a workshop, not a lecture class. Thank you.
Yeah. And you're going to get mind coaching with June. Having that opportunity is priceless. Please join us. You're going to get shut out, and I think you're going to be disappointed if you don't join us.
And I apologize, June. I didn't mean to gloss over that because that's super important to keeping the energy of the whole boot camp going is June's presence and her energy that is added into the whole experience.
Why we call her the fairy godmother. All right. One final announcement. If you're a July bar taker, the countdown series for you begins on March 25th. You'll start getting emails from me, and you will have access to all of the countdown videos. Many of you who are in the February exam, if you haven't been watching the videos, you ought to. We've updated a lot of them. This is the week when we've got a ton of those videos out there because there's so much going on, and there'll be more coming over the next few days.
Oh, yes. I absolutely loved them. It's so just amazing getting the encouragement, the calm, all of it. I loved the videos. And I always encourage my students in our group coaching calls to watch those videos as well.
I think they're valuable. And Bobga, you're in the videos during that time, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely. And I would say part of my experience was, is he reading my mind? Like, how is this on point? But at the same time, the message was always on point. It's like it coming handy at the correct time. Watch the video, take it from there, and keep it moving.
Yeah. Having done this now, I believe I'm coming on my 73rd or 74th bar exam. You do it enough times, you get the rhythm of it. Every time is exciting. I get really pumped up this week to go. And I love this particular Q&A that we're doing because the biggest challenge is the opportunity for us as coaches to respond. And for many of these challenge emails that came in, I responded previously, but they're representative of so much of what we hear from many people. So we wanted to share them with all of you. If we have time, we'll take your challenges from the chat box. We're going to try and move through these quickly, but we want to recognize that for each person who's writing, they're really saying something that a lot of people are probably thinking, and we appreciate that. So let me jump in with the first challenge, and we'll just run it past the panel. First challenge we got, a student said, and I got a lot of these, my biggest concern is memorization and how to accurately apply it to the essays. Briana, when you hear that particular challenge, what's your response to that?
If you're worried about memorization, you haven't really been listening to anything that this course is about. I think I understand when people want the answer just to come to them, which is maybe what they're talking about with memorization, but that's not what this course is about. This course is about working through the essays, the material, answering the question, and identifying the crux of the issues, and then letting it flow. When you're worried about memorizing the laws and other factors, you start sounding more like a robot than a real person. And it's important to have you on the piece of paper. So when I see that word memorization, I'm taken back to when I'm going through the course and no, you're not memorizing. You're working through the problems, and every problem is going to be different. And the law is going to apply differently to every set of facts. So memorization isn't going to help you on this exam.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like memorization with a week to go is going to be very productive. Tracey, you talk to a lot of students, and memorization is a kind of a safe harbor for people, the way that they think they're supposed to learn. But that's really not what I'm to do, as Briana said.
Won't help you next week if you have memorized or you have flashcards. What will help you is the relationships between the principles in any given subject. It's an exercise in understanding the flow of how that area of law works. And the way that you do that is by looking at your outline, because your outline is relational in your books, and your mind maps. If you have done the mind maps, as we have suggested, they are naturally set up in relationship. And it's the relationship that you will recall next week the other.
Bobka, when you took the exam, I think it's safe to say you didn't memorize anything, but you didn't also put yourself in a position where you said, I have to know all of the law, right? You were able to work through the problems. Is that a fair statement?
That is correct. And I think memorization comes with its own pressure. It's like your pressure, you're putting yourself under this pressure cooker to want to know everything. And to add to Brianna's point, once you have that pressure, it stops the natural flow of you getting that knowledge. And if that is the problem, why are you putting that pressure on yourself? Till today, I always say this on my coaching call. No lawyer knows every single thing about the law. If you ask me, do I know the rule against perpetuities? I don't. Does that make me a bad lawyer? Probably not. I am a lawyer. So that pressure is a block. It's not a challenge. Don't look at it like you need to memorize. Go with the program as it is. It's going to flow, and practice makes the master. When you keep practicing, it's going to flow naturally. Memorization is going to be an afterthought.
Yeah,
That's
that's right. I think the implication of this question is I've got to know all the law in order to write an essay. That's just not true. So I want to take that pressure off that student or anybody that's thinking they have to memorize. You're hearing it all across our panel. Memorization is not the answer. Don't waste your time these next 6 days trying to memorize. Okay, let's keep moving here. Our next challenge, a lot of people say, my challenge is writing the performance tests and the essays within their respective timeframes. Let me start with this, and then I'll turn it over to the panel because I'm sure there are a lot of different approaches. I believe that what happens is that people get away from the very simple templates that we offer. When we talk about take the call of the question and write 3 paragraphs, FLA, for your essays, that's all you have to do. Your legal argument is a recipe, as Tracey's described it, that's really 3 or 4 sentences, and your application is who wins and why. When you get to the performance tests, it's find the tests, rules, and elements, apply the facts to them. Again, you don't have to make it too complicated. It's been my experience that people overcomplicate this and then they slow down. They stop working because they're trying to be perfect with it. Tracey, what do you see when you're talking to your students when it comes to these writing timeframes for getting work done?
I'm seeing the students I'm working with using the recipe that we've given them for how to write so that it becomes second nature. Then really what they're doing is, even if you don't know the rule against perpetuities, you're writing around it. You're writing what it is because you remember the relationship. And even if you don't have all the words just perfect, if you have the concept, you're going to get points for that. So I think overthinking is showing up in the paragraphs. And really, the heart of the matter is the L paragraph. And what I'm seeing is students getting in love with where they think the case should go and arguing that point, and then giving dismissive attention to the opposite argument and not putting law in at all. Make sure that you follow the recipe. And even if you think that the other side's argument is frivolous or will not carry the day, you still list it and talk about what law or what interpretation of law they're going to use. Follow that simple format. You do that with the MPTs also, and you're going to bring it home.
Briana, what do you tell your students about timing on essays and performance tests?
You generally, yes, stick with that 30-minute time frame, whether it's for the UBE or 45 minutes. Obviously, to stick within those, but also not to ignore the fact that you could potentially have an essay that doesn't quite hit the word limit, but that's okay. If you don't know a whole lot about this particular essay and you're really going to be focusing on your law paragraphs, your 4 sentences, and your who wins and why, by the way, you guys, one of the things that I see the most in that argument paragraph, like this is who wins and why. But then if they go down this other path and they're not really picking a side. So please just pick a side and argue it to the death. I also see students writing too many facts. Yes, you need to lead your reader to here's how I got. Here is my argument. My argument X wins because, and then give me another sentence or two. And if that's all you can give me on that particular essay, Go on to the next one. You've at least given me the concept there. And then you will find yourself build confidence in the other essays that you're writing because you are going to know everything that there is to know about one of those essays. And you're going to want to just go into all of it. So make sure that you keep that one very kind of more condensed and overwhelm yourself with the feeling that you have from not killing it on the.
I think there's a lot of wisdom there.
Jackson, can I jump in for just a minute on that?
Sure.
That I'm seeing some problems in the fact paragraphs that there's not enough information. You need to identify the legal relationship between the parties because that will lead you to the duty of care and will lead you to your conclusion. So, what's the relationship between the parties? What happened here? Then you need to claim in the fact paragraph what the claimed damage or injury is. There's got to be some setup for the conflict pairs that come right below it. And then your last sentence on the fact paragraph needs to be who's suing who or who's claiming against who. Because if you only say, hey, fell off the Ferris wheel at the carnival, and then you go right into a law paragraph, the bar examiner is not led where you need to make sure you have all three of those elements in your fact paragraph. But you can do that in 3 or 4 sentences quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to make sure.
I'm just listening to
Oh,
everybody.
that's nice. We don't get to see you so often, so it's nice when you pop up back on the screen. In the interest of time, I'm going to move on to our next question.
I would say, add to what Tracey said. I think the only way to improve is when you practice under time conditions, you get a better grasp of how to manage your time going into the exam. And if you hit those timelines, you go in with better confidence, knowing that you're able to write your essay and then you're not overflowing into the next one. That's all.
Good. There's a lot of wisdom there, folks. I hope you take that to heart. I want to stay in the essay world for just a minute. We got questions that basically said essays were going pretty well, but what they're struggling with is how many of the old exam questions should they do? Should they be working through all of them? Is that where the primary emphasis should be in your study at the end, is just doing more and more questions? And one student said, old exams is primarily all that I study. I'm going to listen to videos throughout the week leading up to the exam. I'm not a huge fan of listening to videos at this point because it's pretty passive work. I do like the idea of doing practice tests, whether they're MBEs or performance tests or essays. I think there's some value to that, but it's got to be moderation. You don't want to overdo it and be exhausted. What's the balance that you think a student should be striving for at this point?
Yeah, the answer to this is generally going to vary as to where you are in your syllabus. But this student seems to be through all their material. They're just doing practice questions at this stage. Hopefully, you've done your your MBE practice tests at this phase. If you have found yourself in a comfort zone where you are under your timed conditions, I'm going to be brutally honest. This is what I did because I did find myself in that area. I found it incredibly helpful just to go in and read the essays, the questions, and then just conceptualize or outline in the word, and then go and look at that model answer. I got there a lot more questions, being able to see the different ways things were being tested and figuring out, is this in my mind map? Let's insert it into my mind map. Am I in the right ballpark for the answer here? What was the fact that I missed that may have changed the answer? Dissecting a quick response to each question, a quick way to look and compare. All right, next essay. And then go into the next essay and do the same thing. I got through a ton more material doing it that way only after I was very comfortable with FLA and my timing. I think it's a good tip. I don't think the number of essays you do under timed conditions is going to be more helpful at this stage. I like the idea of studying in 3-hour blocks, 3 hours in the morning, 3 hours in the afternoon. I like the idea of doing 1-hour blocks for different subjects and then doing a mix in the afternoon for MBE questions. Those are my best tips for.
June, I know you're going to have to step out in a minute. There's a mindset component here too, isn't there? Operating from fear versus, as Briana was talking about, operating from confidence. It does change the way you approach it, doesn't it?
It does. So many people, they're overthinking. They're grasping for that one magical thing. That one magical thing is you. You need to just have the confidence and believe that you're doing everything correctly. If you have followed the course, just like Brianna said, if you have done everything in a line, if you have read the emails Jackson has sent for the last 10, 15, 20 days, you are on track. You are in a good place. Take a breath, put your hand on your heart and say, I got this. I've done the work. I've done enough. I keep hearing from everybody, I don't think I've done enough. If you've done these things, you have done enough. And now all you have to do is believe that you deserve to be a member of the bar. That's all. There's a question in chat that I think would flow right into this. So Nina says, after the OPEs, how many more practice exams should we be trying to complete? Also, is writing 2 essays per day enough?
Okay, good questions. Thanks, June.
Bye,
Um,
everybody.
all right, we'll see you in the calls. Depending on your scores, there's probably 2 full-length MBEs that should be taken between now and Saturday, including Saturday. One is the February 91 MBE 1, and the other is the 2021 practice MBE. Those are the only 2 that I would do. But again, I would say go back to your day 24 email where we talk about all the different tests and the benchmarks. If you're falling far below the benchmarks, then you may need to do more of the multi-state exams. It's very individualized at this stage, and there is no universal structure. I would suggest that you take your weakest subject and you do a deep dive on that subject. So if property is your weakest subject, take a study session and do 2, 3, 4 essays in that subject so that you really get some depth in it to review them and then go back. I think that's better than just randomly saying I'm doing 2 at a time. Brianna, do you agree with that?
Okay. 100%. Yeah. And so at this stage, when in my coaching calls, I'm saying, okay, if you really don't even know where to start, if you've watched your preview video and there is an area that is really high on that list of potentially being on the exam and you feel uncomfortable, start there and dig in, get some of those points. You're more likely to get points in your weaker areas now than get more in the areas you are super strong about. Remember, you don't have to be perfect. If it's 3 or 4, write them under time conditions. If you've got extra time in that study session and you're starting to feel good, then add in kind of my approach a little bit with just reading a few more. There's no magic number, but I do like that approach.
Bobka, when you were in that final period of study, this question of what should I be doing next? Do I try to study everything? You didn't try to study everything, did you?
No, that would have been mission impossible. And I'm not Tom Cruise. When I do an MBE question, like a set of 100 questions, 3 hours in the morning, when I come back in the afternoon, I use the same 3 hours to review those 100 questions so that any mistakes I make going forward, I don't make those same mistakes. Same thing with the ACEs too. Review, PTs, do so that at least it keeps your gears running. And at the same time, slowly as you're getting towards the exam, you're reducing your errors. If you have 0 errors, even better because now you're locked in. Oh, I'm solid. I'm good. Ready to go. So that's what I did.
Yeah.
And self-care, taking care of yourself as well is
Self-care is big. Tracey, we had a student that said, I don't feel I'm strong in any subject, and so I have to review everything in depth. And thinking of that is exhausting and overwhelming. What do you think?
If you've done your work coming up, then you have your mind maps. You don't have time to listen to everything again. So take a breath, step back, listen to Jackson's videos for the last 30 days. Those are helpful. And get yourself focused to go prove your professional competence next week.
Thank you. We got a lot of questions about what to do at the end. One of the examples is a student said, how do I get through 200 questions, multiple choice questions a day and do all of my writing? You don't do all of it. On a day when you're going to practice MBEs, that's all you do. As you heard Briana and Bobka say, you study, review, answer choices, and that's a full day. It's 6 hours to take the exam with a lunch break in between, and then you've got to have some time to review. The big danger is trying to overdo, trying to do so much in anticipation of the exam that you come to the exam exhausted. Last week, Amanda made a great point about if you're running a marathon, you don't run a marathon the day before the marathon. That just doesn't make any sense. And none of us would try to do that. But I think it's this anxiety that causes us to think we have to do everything. At this stage, you are not trying to do the whole course again. You're trying to find your weakest areas and then work there. And when a student says, I can't figure out my weakest areas, I think most people can make a rank order and find their hardest 2 or 3 subjects and their easiest 2 or 3. Now, there are going to be a lot in the middle that are just, they're right there. But if you know the one, and here's the test that I give people, what is the topic that when you open the book on Tuesday morning that you don't want to see? That's your topic you need to spend time on, right? That's the one that is your snake. It's the one that's going to scare you. Go ahead, Brianna.
So it happened to me. The one essay I didn't want to get was the first question out of the bat. And I'll tell you why. It was contracts. And the reason I don't like contracts essay questions is because they generally don't have, here's question 1, 2, 3. It's very open ended and broad. And you can talk about performance and full performance. And it's just, are you going to talk about the right one? And I just didn't want to see it. That's exactly how you're going to find your weak areas. Which MBE questions give you the most anxiety when you see them? Is it the length of the real property questions? Is it the civil procedure because it's pretty black and white? What gives you a little bit of anxiety that you can help calm down right now by doing a little bit more?
Yeah. We've been talking about essays and performance tests. I want to switch over to the MBEs because that's a huge part of what's going on. We got a lot of questions where people said, biggest challenge is a particular subject on the MBE. When you see that challenge areas, this is where you go back to the second set of subject specific questions for the MBE. And if it's real property, for example, go to questions 101 through 175. I had somebody call me yesterday from another course who was struggling with multi-state and was saying, I can't memorize enough. I can't figure out all the rules. Let's just play a game. Let's play selective intuition. We did selective intuition with a couple of our questions. And I showed them how whether you get a question right or wrong doesn't really matter at this point. If you get it wrong, you go back and add it to your notes or your mind map. If you get it right, you're just reinforcing what you're doing and building strength there. Again, the real key here is to work to your weakness. We want you to be confident rather than uncomfortable, but you're going to get your confidence by going to the uncomfortable spots. Does that make sense, Tracey?
Yes. And we need to lean into those things. And don't run away from them. Just follow what you're instructed to do here.
Yeah. There's plenty of questions. You don't have to do all of them. Be focused. Now, if you need multi-subject practice, you've got the OPEs, you've got the practice MBEs. But the biggest mistake people make at this stage is they try to do every practice MBE. There's this mythology that you've got to do 50 questions a night. You got to do 4. I've had people contact me say, I did 4,000 MBEs. And I'm like, why are you talking to me? Because you obviously failed when you did that. So that strategy didn't work. I think most students in our course that pass probably do about 1,000 questions. Bobga, do you have a sense of how many MBEs you did to practice before the exam?
I think I ran through all the MBEs in the program, like, and then reviewed again to make sure I was solid. But anything outside the program,
No. So you didn't do 4,000 questions. People put themselves under enormous pressure that they don't have to do. And the truth is, there are, out of those 7 subjects, there are 2 or 3 that you're probably very good at and very strong. You don't need to do more questions right now in that subject. Find the things you're not good at and improve them. It's like birds on a wire. You're just knocking the birds off the wire. Oh, here's a question. I didn't know the answer to this. Now I do. We've talked so much over the last few months about the growth mindset versus the fixed mindset. You still need a growth mindset this week. When you get a question wrong, instead of going, oh my God, I got it wrong, take it as this is an opportunity to learn something I didn't know. Is that an approach? I know, Brianna, that was your approach going in, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That was something I started pivoting and shifting my perspective with getting wrong answers probably about halfway through the course. I was beating on myself so bad. I was like, I've got to change this. If I'm going to sit here and dig my own grave. I need to find a way out of the mud. So it's like, okay, I need to talk, going back to that gratitude. When you approach something in a positive way, when you go through your day looking for the good things, it just comes naturally. And that growth mindset is going to stick with you forever, I hope, because it's the only way I can even think to go through life now, by looking for the new learning moments, looking for new experiences, looking for the happiness, because the sadness will completely overwhelm you if you let it.
Yeah. Great. Those are great responses. So that gives you a sense of the biggest challenges. We had a couple of questions that were end of the study period questions, and I wanted to get to those quickly. One of them was, does the NCBE require a clock on the wall in my testing room? And how am I supposed to handle timing if there isn't a clock in the room? Every testing room has a timing device placed somewhere in DC. They put it around the corner for reasons that don't make sense. In Florida, they put it up on a wall, and if you're at the back of the room, that's a bit of a challenge. Virtually every place, I don't know of any room where they don't give you the clock on the wall. Do you? No, they're both shaking their head. No. If this is something you're worried about, contact the bar examiners, send them an email, make a phone call, say, where's the clock or how's it going to be set up? They have an obligation to tell you the time. Don't fixate too much on it. When you walk into the room on Tuesday morning, if you don't see the clock, raise your hand, tell the proctors, I need to know the timing, and let them tell you. And if you're not in one of the big jurisdictions where they've got thousands of people, it's manageable in most situations. All right. Next question. This was a sad one. We had somebody else who didn't get their bar correspondence about typing, and they missed out. And for those of you taking the exam in July of 2024, I don't know how else to say it. Read your emails, check your spam, check the examiner's website, double, triple, quadruple check it. This person changed their email address and it didn't get forwarded properly. So now they have to handwrite their essays next week. And they said, I did all the essays. Great. Do you have recommendations for handwriting at the end? So I sent this student back to that. Every exam, we have people that handwrite and pass. It can be done. It's unfortunate. I think it puts you at a disadvantage, but not an impossibility. And so if you're going to have to handwrite, you handwrite. That's all there is to it. The simple piece is you print, you use paragraphs, you stay in the writing approach of FLA, you use spaces between paragraphs, you write simply, and you stay focused. Tracey, you have anything to add about the handwriting?
Yes. Print, don't use cursive, and put spaces between your words because it's harder to read. People are not used to reading handwriting anymore. So make your words count. Make sure that you get to the point and that you follow the FLA exactly, because you're going to run out of time if you are printing and you are trying to do the same thing that you could do with a typewriter.
So, Briana, anything about handwriting?
Yeah. Two things. It kind of spins off of what Tracey was saying. You're not going to get the same word count, make every word count. Be more thoughtful before you start writing everything down. So if it means taking a deep breath, conceptualizing it in your head, if you've got a scratch paper, outline on a scratch paper before you start writing your full sentences, I think that would be incredibly helpful. The second thing that I want to bring up is every single one of you need to be prepared to potentially handwrite. Visualize your computer crashing. What are you going to do? Walk through it. Are you going to take a deep breath? Are you going to raise your hand? Are you going to ask for booklets and keep writing? What are you going to do? Do you picture yourself completely freaking out? If you do, now I need you to rethink that whole process, because you're not going to freak out. Just because you have been practicing something one way doesn't mean that's exactly what's going to happen on game day. So put those thoughts in your head. What's going to happen if your computer crashes? If that means you go ahead and start handwrite a couple of essays now, go for it.
Yeah. And we had that happen to a few students in the last exam and they passed, right? And so there is great wisdom in what Briana just said. Run through all the scenarios in your brain and be prepared for them so that nothing surprises you. Many of you probably heard about something called the Super Bowls a few weeks ago while you were studying. And there was a controversy about the fact that when the game went to overtime and there were new rules, one team seemed to know the rules and the other team was unaware of them. They hadn't gamed them out. And the team that didn't game them out ended up losing the game. You have to think through all those possibilities. Bobka, when you're practicing, you think through the possibilities before you go into the courtroom, don't you?
Absolutely. And as a lawyer, you have to prepare for any eventuality. You have to anticipate. This guy can every this can counter with that. And it's more of I'm prepared. Whatever comes out of the bag, I'm ready to go for it. When you're prepared, your confidence level is up there. It's like, I'm solid. I'm good. When you walk into that home, nobody is talking to you because it's like, I can't talk to you guys. I'm going for it. And that's it.
Yeah. I think that's the best you can do at this stage. So this student said, I'm distraught right now. Okay, you're distraught. Get over it. You're going to be an attorney. There are going to be moments when you're distraught. Things go wrong. Tracey, you sat on the bench. You watch attorneys get into bad situations, and the good ones somehow overcome that, don't they?
Yeah, I've been there as a litigator. You just get yourself in some big messes, and it's how well you pull those in and move them around in your head. This is part of being a lawyer. Whether you ever make it into a courtroom or not, it's just part of this profession that you have chosen and that you are qualified for. So if you are distraught now, get over it, lean into it, understand what it's about, maybe journal it today. And then end your journaling with your gratitude journal because that will change your mindset. All about that mindset. When you go into that exam next week, you're not going alone. If you've had personal coaching of any kind, put that coach on your shoulder. That coach is going to be whispering in your ear and keeping you on track because that's what we do in this program. We work with you individually. So don't think you're going in there alone. You've got Jackson on your shoulder. You've got me. You've got Briana. You've got Amanda. You've got Bobka. You've got June. You've got a whole team behind you and you can't go home.
I got an interesting email during the webinar today, and it addresses something I wanted to talk about. A student took the first half of the MBE1, the February 91 test, and they wrote to me and said, I don't feel good about the first half of my test. Timing was significantly behind. I had to guess on a bunch, and I'm pretty sure I only got 40% correct. Maybe I should cancel my flight, LOL, but it wasn't pleasant. That is a response I get from a lot of people. So I want to address this right now, and then I'll turn it to the panel. First of all, you never try to evaluate halfway through one of these full length tests. Never, ever. You just can't. The test, one part of the test is typically harder than the other. It has to do with the order of the questions. You will hear me talk about that. In the February 91 test, there is a discussion explicitly in the video, not the video, in the audio I made afterwards, talking about the length of the questions. It tends to throw you off. You have longer fact patterns that makes you think of sections harder. When you're sitting in the actual bar exam, there will be 4 forms of the test. Everyone gets the same 100 questions in the morning, but there's 4 forms of the test, so you can't copy anyone around you. And so as a result, some people get longer fact patterns at the beginning and they feel like, oh my God, that was the worst 100 questions ever. Some people get some easier questions at the beginning. They get momentum and they think, oh, that was really smooth and went well. Stay totally in your own world. Cannot compare with anyone else. Now, here's the other part of this. Going back to the fixed mindset versus growth mindset. I don't really care what you get on the February 91. I know I talk about it being predictive and it's got all of those pieces, but every exam, I have students that blow up badly on this test and pass the bar exam. In the same way, we have students that get great scores on this test and they fail the bar exam. It is not infallible. It's just a roadmap. It's a marker. That's all it is. If you don't feel like you did well on that first section, I'm going to challenge you to that you didn't use selective intuition. And I happen to know this student knows how to do selective intuition and they're not doing it because the tension and fear starts to creep in and you start thinking, I got to know it all instead of just trusting that you know it. If you trust that you know it and you stay at 90 seconds a question, you will get enough questions right to pass the exam. Selective intuition works. It works really well, but you got to trust it. Briana, what's your thought when you hear this question?
Original question. I was just
Just freaked out about the first part of the February 91 test. Didn't go.
Yeah, I completely agree with the things that you're talking about. Some people, you're going to see half the group get up and leave like with 20 minutes to spare. And you're like, maybe you still have 20 questions. Hopefully, you don't have 20 questions to go, but everyone's at their own pace. You're on your own journey. It doesn't matter what other people are doing and where they are. Let's go to Jackson's thing about testing yourself halfway through. Think about where you were when you were halfway through this course. You're nowhere near where you are now. You've got to finish the test, push through, follow your gut, don't cancel your flight. You've got this. If you're doing the February 91 exam, you are on course. You are right where you need to be. Finish it up and just do your best.
Yeah. Bobka, what's your thought?
No, this is more on anxiety and panic about something that doesn't really count because the test is just practice. That is the whole point of why it's there. And you don't get to be the best if you don't practice. That's a part of your learning curve. Are you going to get frustrated and cancel your flight because it's 40%? No. Are you going to give up the practice of law because you lost your first two pieces? No. It's more of, okay, I got 40%. Let me improve to make sure that this goes up. You don't freak out. You control your emotions and then it's got to do better. So it's more of, it's a wake-up call, improve, get it ready, and then go to the exam. That's it. Don't freak out though.
Yeah. Briana, want to add to that?
The 91 exam has a decent scale. You might be at 40% for the first half. Maybe you're 50% on the next. And then with the scaled score, you're still passing. So don't give up on yourself.
It's hard. People put themselves under enormous pressure here. Any last words to wrap up? Thanks for all these comments from everybody, but any last thoughts about all of this?
Think of a road race, a marathon, for example. Everyone runs at a different pace. Everyone has a different strategy going into the race. There may be some people that take off like jackrabbits and then they burn out or they slow down in the middle. I think what Jackson told you about all these different forms of exam is important. Just stay in your lane, run your own race. Don't worry about anybody else in the room. I don't think you should have lunch with anybody. It reminds me of lawyers that come in to try a case and they have boxes and cases and boards. And I came in with a legal pad and one thin file. I usually beat them because I was prepared. You're going to be prepared. Just go in and run your own race.
And I think that's a great way to wrap up today. Run your own race. You've still got 6 days. Don't push it too far. Don't go too deeply into the weekend. Don't be trying to do heavy study next Monday. June has a call on Monday night, the cheer call. We encourage all of you that are taking the exam to join us for that call. Continue to stay in touch with us this week. Many of you have personal coaching sessions set up with Tracey, Briana, Amanda, and myself. Take advantage of those. We're here for you, ready to support you. This is the chance for you to begin your legal career and to show that you are ready to become a member of the bar. We really believe you are. If you've done the work, if you've done what we asked you to do, you're ready and you can pass this exam. And we have every confidence that's going to happen. If there's anything that you need from us, reach out. We're here. We're not going anywhere. I promise I am here. We will do everything we can to support you. Have a great bar exam. Travel safely. And look forward to talking to you when it's all done. Thanks, Tracey. Thanks, Briana. Thanks, Bobka. It's great to see all of you. And we will check back in with you for the bar exam. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.